Hello folks, my name is Diego Pacheco and this is an AI video. So in this video I want to talk about AI as a driving force and maybe some food for thoughts if we are reinventing ourselves, if we're getting better or if we are getting obsolete. So 4 years ago I made this video about AI in the future. Basically, I read a lot of books and I talk about lots of things. So far, none of these things happen in a sense that we're not quite there. And this video is going to be addressing more of the latest advances and things that we should be keeping in mind, right? But here's the old video in case you want to watch it. So Arthur Clarke says that any sufficiently advanced technology is distinguishable from magic. So if you don't understand, you're gonna look like magic, but if you understand, maybe it's not so magical. So definitely AI is in a hype. Right now is a little bit better. 6 to 8 months ago was much worse hype. Right now, as in approaching Q2 of 2025, is not as bad, but still quite a lot of hype. And with hype, there's often problems because kind of loses the point of benefit, and there's a lot of exaggerations and a lot of problems. So there is a disruption coming. If we look here, this data is a bit old. These projects are from 2023, but you see that technology and business and finance and manufacturing, you see areas where there are lots of projects with AI, so definitely going to disrupt a bunch of things. And if you see in this other chart on the right, we used to have transistors, right? And from the 60 to 2010, they were kind of linearly growing, and then they're kind of like stuck. And then thanks to the GPUs and evolution in GPU, we see computation for AI getting better. We see 10x improvement every 6 months. But just because now we are seeing this huge spike of growth, it doesn't mean that it's going to be exponential all the way, that we're going to continue on this trend. We don't know pretty much. But one thing we can observe is that Elon Musk is talking about self-driving cars, that we would have it next year. Since 2014, we still don't have it. And here is like a funny YouTube video, if you take a look, and link where some people in San Francisco put these cones on the cars that they completely lock, right? So they stop working. And the reason why self-driving cars is so hard is because you need to get it like 100% right. Otherwise, it's too dangerous, right? Because the risk is too high. So that's why you see what people say in reality as quite different things, right? Because we see here the promise of self-driving cars every year since 2014 is more than 10 years now, right? And still not happening, and we're quite not there yet. So it goes with the question where you think AI is going to be hands-on or hands-off. Well, the promise, if one day we get in the future, is that is hands-off, and then it becomes like AGI, right? That's where you have the Terminator movie kind of vibes. But in reality today, it cannot be hands-off. If you use AI as hands-off, you're gonna be in serious trouble, right? So you kind of need to use it hands-on. We need supervision, otherwise you kind of are in trouble. So Bill Gates has some predictions that he says for the future that only 3 kind of jobs will survive. That will be engineers that are going to be keep architecting and improving the AI, energy experts, and biologists. And he says that maybe see AI playing basketball or baseball is too boring, so you might want to see humans playing baseball, right? So there is this books by Yuval Noah Harari. He's a historian, and on the latest books he's kind of like addressing AI. There's a new book on Nexus. I didn't read this one, but he say quite interesting things. I was talking about this on the first video. So 4 years ago to today, we still didn't had much evolution. But one thing he says is quite interesting is that if you have self-driving cars, let's say they work, right? And then how insurance is gonna be. So if something goes wrong, is that the fault of the model of the AI? Is that for the company? Is the developer the problem? So the company has like better modules, like you charge more or less from insurance. So it's kind of like a hard problem to solve, right? And what Yuval argues that kind of need philosophers. Another thing he says recently is that what we're seeing is not AGI, and he is correct on that. That GPT, and we see this LLMs, the large language models, are kind of like the amoeba of AI. So they're gonna evolve to something bigger and better in the future, but right now they're kind of a basic, right? So and I think that makes a lot of sense. So there is this paradox called Giovanni paradox, where it happened a lot around I think was coal and mining and energy, but also apply to cars, and now we can also apply to AI. So here on the cartoon on the right, we see like the idea that fuel efficiency gains tend to increase, not decrease fuel usage, right? And the cartoon it says there is new cars are so efficient, everyone's driving everywhere these days, right? So if you make engineering coding more efficient, you're more likely to have more coding, not less coding. But what actually is happening, right, is that because how things are going, LLM is kind of like shifting our perceptions and expectations, I would even say, because now we expect much faster results, right? You type something, you have a much better code complete than you had before. If you think before, you'd have to type on Google, look in a forum, then something's wrong, you try again, and you keep doing that, right? You might not find the answer on the internet. It might take days and weeks. And now the autocomplete is so much better. Even when you use the chat, you can get the result much faster, right? So the expectation is that you can do things faster, you can figure out things faster. But it also creates a bigger problem for security, right? Because then you have a much bigger attack surface and much lower barrier, right? So this make force us to improve our security games. Not only to mention that a lot of the code generated by LLM often is not secure at all, right? So you need to kind of add secure, because it's training for data on the internet, and most of the internet doesn't worry about security. So that's something that there's a profound impact on security. Now, security will be harder not only because of that, but because we're gonna have very complicated, very advanced phishing attacks, right? Like for instance, now it's so easy to fake someone's voice or someone's picture or even video, right? Or even the way that someone writes. So that can make a very advanced phishing attacks and social engineering, right? So that's something you need to watch, and security definitely going to be harder. The other thing is that technical debt will increase, because often you generate with LLM or code, and you end up having less reuse, right? And by definition, this can easily introduce technical debt. And if your code base is not good, there's a lot of anti-patterns and problems. The tendency is to replicate that anti-pattern, right? So bad code gonna spread much faster than before. If we're not paying attention, doing code review, it's gonna go much faster, right? So we're gonna inject technical debt in a much faster pace. So code review is gonna be harder, especially because if people don't understand the code they are producing, that creates kind of like a bad cycle. Learning is also harder, because you don't want to be in a position where you are sort of a LLM ops or LLM proxy, where the only thing you do is to get orders or data or tasks from someone and just feed to the LLM. That's not great at all. and one thing you definitely trading off is the speed of getting things done versus learning. You might get something done very fast, but are you understanding what's going on, right? Because now you can get more things done and you can understand less about what you did. We always had this problem before with Google, with Coursera, with forums, with Stack Overflow, but now it's a bit sharpened, it's a bit worse in that sense. And the other thing is like there is definitely one skill on how to use LLMs like in a better way, but you need to learn the hard skills behind what the LLM is doing, all right? Otherwise, you're not developing hard skills in the long run. You are not becoming better because, let's say the LLM give you like 70%, there's still going to be like the 30% the LLM will not be able to go. And if you don't develop the hard skills, it will be hard to close the gap, right? So this has a profound effect, especially in juniors. They need to be careful to just not generating all the things and getting things done, but don't understand what they're getting, right? And this is a very important thing and shapes how we learn things. We need to be worried about that. So the other thing is that LLM models are becoming commodities. Everybody has the same access. We have the same internet, and the model cost keeps going down, right? So if we look like from 2022 to even the beginning of 2023 and 2024, there's a significant drop on cost, and the drop in cost keeps dropping down, right? So if you look at these two sites, LLM price and LLM price check, you can see a lot of models and compare price, but price is going down. A lot of tech companies are going to nuclear energy, and if they go nuclear, the price might be even lower, more efficient, right? So having a LLM model is not like the big differentiator anymore, and cost, is going out. Although some models are very expensive, we saw the new GPT model being very, very expensive. But besides that, all other models are just like going down. So there is some new learning opportunities because I always did these coding dojos, or I don't know if we should saying like vintage coding dojos now, because you do coding dojo without AI, right? And that's the way that you can learn engineering skills. And you kind of need, if you're gonna use the LLM, you need to use it in a way that you ask it to explain, but LLM explain is not enough. You also need to verify, because what if LLM is saying things to you that are wrong and don't work, right? So you kind of need to do your own research before trusting everything the LLM is saying. Like if you get something on the internet, you wouldn't believe on the first link you read, right? So you kind of do your work to kind of research. So LLM can get you the result faster, but also could be wrong faster, right? So you need also take the slow route and kind of like understand what's going on. So this demands us to do better, right? Because things go faster, we better understand what we're doing, right? So demand us to do better, to develop hard skills, to improve a lot of other skills, which I'm going to talk more as we go here. So for engineering, there's good opportunities, like especially to get things done faster, and with migrations, we can do much better now with migrations with LLM. We can help to increase test coverage, and we can help to speed up discover. Here are some links. You can see more about that. Now, I want to ask one hard question, which is, how do you know if people are lying to you? And if you forget about this question, you can think it in a different way. If you think, oh, it's too negative. But if you think, how do you know if you're doing the right thing? And then you probably need to also ask the question, okay, but how can I define what is the right thing, right? So let's say you're doing something, it's good for the company work, it's good for the employees, it's good for the customers, right? And good for the world, right? And to say if all that aligns, you have a win-win-win situation, right? So it's right. But how do you know that's right? How do you know that's better, right? So if you don't know how bad it looks like, and if you don't know how bad looks like, and you don't know the difference, you may be fooled, all right? And the thing is, like, how do you know that all these things you're getting very fast are actually good things, right? So you kind of need to step up and do better, because you need to know, right? You need to know. So this kind of forces us to master our game, to have more knowledge, more adaptability, and kind of a situation where either we disrupt or be disrupted, and that needs to happen continuously, right? If you forget about AI, completely forget about AI, why you shouldn't be doing that anyways, no matter if we have AI or not. So if you replace AI for internet or for mobile, for the latest advances in technology, I would say is exactly the same thing, right? So this is not about AI; it's about always improving continuously. I want to call out some things that you maybe not aware. AI, there's a bunch of people just being fooled about AI. If you remember how I opened the video talking about, magic, and if you don't understand things, you kind of are like, can be easily fooled. So there were this amazing video with Sora that everybody was blow up, and turns out that video was, produced in a studio. So it was not real. There was this other story about like some guy that fooled the AI LLM chatbot sort of buy a car for $1, right? And there's full of things going on. There's also this big scam that Cofzilla debunked about the rabbit. Where they claim to have an action model, right, advice, but under the hood they was just using GPT, right? But they were even claiming that they were better than GPT. How can you be better than GPT if you're just using GPT, right? And under the hood they were not even using APIs, because some of the products they were integrating don't have APIs. So what they were doing is just using Playwright, which is like Selenium, and then they were clicking on the UI, right? And this is just software, that's just an engineering, right? So what they did, they blend engineering with AI, and they claim to have a super AI, but they didn't have any of that, right? And people got fooled, invest a lot of money, and bought this product. And if you look Cofzilla review, it barely works, right? And this is very fragile, because if anyone changes anything on the UI or redesign the website, it just stop working, right? Because it's not an API, it was not made it to be done that way. And some companies, they don't want APIs because they don't want to be aggregated. They don't not want to do in a B2B2C, let's say it, right? They want maybe customer focus, right? But now, if you forget all the wrong things that is going on here, all the hype, all right? Actually, there's something interesting that you see AI blended with engineering. That's where you can do interesting things. And this leads to agents, which people think is the new thing, but is very old. I think the first agent is dated to 1960. There was good advances on agents on the 90s, and I remember more than 20 years ago when I was on the university, I was doing some code with agents as well, right? And there was no LLMs. So this idea is that you have a software and you have some sort of like input and output, and it reacts to the environment, right? And do things. So this idea is very, very old, is not new, but now people are doing that with LLM, and LLMs are more powerful, right? But the idea is not new at all, right? But what this kind of add is more unpredictability, because you are not there to review every act of the agent. You kind of trading autonomy for less control, and it kind of leads to cheating as well, right? And I don't know, at least so far, agents was not like a huge thing that everybody was doing everywhere. And I personally have doubts that this is gonna be a thing, just because it seems hard to me to measure like everything working in an autonomous fashion. I think we're quite away from that, right? But we'll see. And another thing I want to come out when I was talking about cheating, right? What if you say no, right? So there is this article, you can click there and see, but I just put some highlight here. During January, February, hundreds of trials of OpenAI O1 preview model and DeepSeek R1 reviewing the one preview attempted to cheat 37% of the time, and DeepSeek R1 11% of the time, making their first AI models to try cheating without first being prompted by researchers. Present AI models such as Claude 3.5 and GPT-4 would not have cheating route suggested than before trying. So you see, as models are evolving, they're trying to cheat, they're trying to break out of jail, right? And that's what I mean. You're gonna do that in an agent is even worse, right? So we have situations where mistakes cannot be happen at all, like with cars, right? So there's critical systems that you can have things like that. So unless you are 100% perfect, it's quite hard. AI is good, but it's far from being perfect. So on the first video I was talking about this, right? One possibility that this book is amazing, Life 2.0, Tegmark talks about is that if we keep giving out control to AI might decide that we are not good and put us in a zoo, right? Because we keep damaging the planet. But I think we are very, very far from that. Maybe one day happens, right? But I don't know if it's gonna be even in our generation. So going back to the magic thing, right? So there's this story. There's here another video you can take a look about the Clever Hands, which was a horse that claimed to be doing math, right? And everybody was puzzled. And if you remember, like 100 years ago, horses was like a big thing. But what they discovered is that the horse actually was not able to do math. The horse was able to read the crowd and read his owner, and that's how he knew he was going to the right path. But the knowledge of the horse was limited by the knowledge of the man, and they tried to do tests with the horse alone without the man, and the results not as good, right? So what we see here is that if you think about this, right, the knowledge of the horse was bounded by the knowledge of the man. The horse could not know, he was limited to what the man know. And that's kind of like what happens with LLMs today. People are very impressed and think they are the rise of the machines, but not really. It's all human knowledge that for centuries is there, and we condense it on the internet, right? So that's our knowledge, right? So there's not like they're doing things we didn't do before, right? They're just trained to that. And if you ask them to do something that's not there, they fail pretty badly, right? So in a sense, it's just a better autocomplete. But if you don't understand what's going on, you might say, oh my God, this horse kind of knows math, right? And with LLMs, it's kind of the same placebo effect, right? That's not the case. It's pretty amazing. It's even better than the horse, right? But it's not quite there that can create a knowledge and reason. It's not quite there. Now, the other thing I want to say is like this. If you think about innovation, what happens is that old things tends to stick and new things tends to change. So where are the VCRs and the CD players, right? Nobody has VHS and CD players anymore. But the old things, they stick, right? So if you look like dinnerware, they're still the same for century. I think the first one was dated to 204,000 BC. And the other thing I want to call out is that to innovate, to disrupt, sometimes you don't need alien tools and alien technology, right? So if you look, Nirvana was a quite disruptive band, and they had like a guitar, a bass, and drums, not even two guitars, one, right? So you see it's like three guys, and the lyrics was not like the most evolved ones, and the vocals not the perfect vocals, and even like the songs are pretty basic, right? Just using power chords pretty much. So it's not like Beethoven, the Fifth Symphony, right? So they were not like the best musicians of the planet, but still could made a lot of impact. So it's not just about the technology that you have there. Sometimes you can make a lot of impact and disrupt with very simple things, and Nirvana kind of make us remember that. But the industry right now is definitely freaking out and panicking because people don't understand what's going on. But there is layoffs going on. A bunch of companies say there are layoffs because they can have money to invest on AI, right? And there is this job displacement fear of the future. If we're gonna have 50%, 70%, 10%, right? I don't think it'd be as big as they're saying here, but definitely there's a lot of fear of a lot of people losing their jobs. And there's this thing, right, called vibe coding, which I kind of need to address, but for me, I think it's like a Weeks paradox. I will explain in a moment. If you didn't watch this movie, Idiocracy, you should watch. Explain very well. So the idea of vibe coding is that you kind of code without coding. You just keep generating prompts and you don't touch the code, right? And you keep trying. And that can make you somewhere far. For instance, so there's this famous developer called Levels.io where he made this kind of like flying game. People say flight simulator, but it's not a flight simulator at all, right? It's not a AAA game. It's not Ace Combat by any means. but it's a game, and we kind of work it. It's not the most advanced at the graphics, right? But he was able to make money with it and go into production and I think in a week he did a lot of the things in the game. So probably without AI, it would take longer, right? But there's a limit. He won't be able to take this game today to be a Ace Combat or to be a AAA game, right? Because like these video games, you don't have a lot of training data on AAA games on the internet right there. Even so, right, if you generate something, you are bound by the knowledge of the past, right? So remember about that as well. But this is a cool thing because it's kind of like democratize coding, and more people now can do things. For me, this is kind of like the Wix paradox, right? So there's always these websites where you could build websites very easily and not even barely know HTML and CSS and JavaScript. And for me, this is always these things like low code and no code platforms. These things completely gonna be disrupted, right? I think this is happening right now. Because LLMs are better than that, and if you lose the LLM to do something like that, you can do it something pretty good. But so far we're very far away from a AAA game, all right? So I think this is interesting, but I don't think you can solve hard problems with vibe coding, right? I think it's more like democratizing so others can play with it. And for me, it helps on discovery. So if you are in product and you have some idea and want to play with it, now you don't need an engineer. You can just get some website yourself and see if you like it or not, right? But I wouldn't say you can throw it in production. There's other developers trying to do what Levels.io did, and a bunch of security problems and vulnerabilities, right? So we are not quite there yet. But can you ignore AI? No, you cannot ignore AI. Even if you don't use AI, others gonna use AI on you. So if you look Netflix, you're gonna see a movie, you got recommendations by AI. On Amazon, you buy a product, you get product recommendations from an AI. On Spotify, you got recommendations from Spotify using AI on what to hear, right? You see ads in Hulu, the ads have AI telling which ad to see. For eBay, you're gonna do search, there's AI there. Even in Google now, Google was a bit late on that. Perplexity did first, but Google today catch up. When you do a search in Google, you also get AI, right? So there's no kind of like escape. And this give us a lot of opportunities, right? So we have opportunities for continuous learning, for updation, and for experimentation. And for leadership, it kind of puts us in a position that we need to evolve, we need to rethink process and practices with AI, like engineering changing, testing changes, code reviewing changes for sure. But we also need to double down and being human and having relationships and creativity. AI sucks on creativity, and it cannot beat us at all. Now, there's all these things calling like reasoning models or deep reasoning. There's no reasoning, right? This is just marketing. However, they have some cool tools for research, right? So that's what Perplexity does in a nutshell. And OpenAI have these products now called Deep Research, right? So all these companies, what they're doing, they're pivoting from sort of like low-level LLM to the second degree of abstraction, right? So it's like in industrial revolutions where before you have like raw materials in agriculture, and then you start having like industrial products, right? So that's kind of what's going on with these companies. They're trying to be consumer focused or have higher level of abstractions, and AI kind of a blending of engineer a lot. So this product is pretty cool about research. But it's not reasoning at all. AI cannot reason. What they're doing is more like a cow. AI kind of like eats and we throw it and eat it back and throw it and eat it back. That's what's going on, right? So it kind of happen in waves. So we have an input, it gives us an output and retrofits that and keep doing that a couple of times, and that's like the reasoning, right? And sometimes can do that longer, and other times can do it smaller, right? But it's kind of like just like a snake eating its own tail, right? And using your input with his output to be his input again, right? In a chain, and that's what's going on, right? But now some models allow you to see this reasoning. And then you can see what's the text, and that helps because then you can say, oh, here you are wrong, all right? You can kind of a help to troubleshoot a little bit and debug and make it better, right? It's a good advance, right? We're getting better results with that, but also more latency gets a bit slower, right? And but it's not reasoning. It's not reasoning at all. Now, finally, I would like to wrap up. So what is AI, right? So is it like it is vaporware? You just ignore it? Is it like the evolution of machines, just panic, or is just a better tool, use it? I think it's all of the three, right? So to some degree, it is vaporware, it is ignore it, right? There's a lot of scans and just things that trying to fool us to think that this is 10x advanced when it's not, right? So there's a lot of vaporware on it, 100%. There's no evolution of machines right now, not yet. One day maybe, but we are far from that. We are far from AGI. If you look OpenAI, for instance, right? GPT-5, they promise over a year, more than a year passed, and we still don't have GPT-5, right? And I don't know if we're gonna have. And the models, if you look like from one model to another, like they are kind of like stalling. They're not evolving much. Sometimes from one model to another, they're actually going worse, right? Or even costing more. Although the trend it is to reduce costs, right? So there was definitely a good bump on the last 3-4 years and good evolution, but far away from evolution of the machine. So not yet. Forget about that. It's more like I think AI right now is like a Better Call Saul show, where like the bad guy is kind of like the hero, and the hero is good and bad at the same time, because there's a mix of limitations and bad things, but also good things, right? So definitely I would say use AI and adapt to it, because it's forcing us to rethink a lot of things, how we hire, how we manage people, how we even, like, I would say, reward people, right? Because someone is using LLM all day long, right? So you should make it less because of that. So it disrupts so many things, right? Or you say, oh no, this is how things go, and that's how we can be more productive, right? So there's a lot of things that needs to be rethink, right? And disruption is definitely here, and we need to adapt, right? And that's definitely use cases that we could take benefit and improve us, but definitely I would just cross it, the revolution of machines. Don't worry about the Terminator movie right now. I still think it's a mix between Idiocracy and Better Call Saul, where there is good things, right? But they're not perfect, so it doesn't fit for all use cases. You need to be hands-on. It cannot be hands-off, right? You cannot just throw in front of users. That is very, very limited, the number of cases you can do that. Most of cases, it fits very well for engineering. It fits very well for things a human reviewing. Right, so that's what I think, right? So there's you need to ignore all the drama, all the hype about the evolution of the machines. That's not what's happening. There is a lot of things that are vaporware, and ignore it, right? And things will be better. Probably the tools in 5-10 years are going to be completely different than the tools we have it today, right? But as today, there are good things. It's definitely better autocomplete tool. It's definitely better to engineers, but like I said, you need to be careful. You cannot just use it, because otherwise you might be killing your learning effectively, right? So you need to have this slow flow ways to learn, right? And definitely rethink a bunch of things and keep an eye on it. So that's it what I have. Hope you guys like it. Take care. Cheers.